Hey guys, it's Harry from Inside Boxing Brain and welcome back to another video. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video and drop me a comment in the comment section below as well. Now, today's video is all about Misfits Boxing, the YouTube space, the YouTube boxing game, the world of YouTube boxing. Seems to have really taken over the game if you ask me, and the sport now, the professional ranks anyway, seem to really be flagging behind. So I want to just do a little bit of a breakdown about why I feel that YouTube boxing is taking over the game. So to get into this, YouTube boxing really all kicked off with Jake Paul. He was the first athlete or YouTuber to cross over into the boxing world as an athlete, and ever since he stepped into the game, he was causing waves. He was a troll. He knew how to wind people up. He knew how to get under their skin, and he knew how to get the reaction out of people that he wanted. And because he had amassed such a massive following on all of his social media platforms, he was able to translate that following into ticket purchases and, more importantly, pay-per-view buys. Now that's what I really want to talk about in this video, and I want to drill down into why pay-per-view and YouTube boxers seem to be taking over the traditional sport. And I don't think it's just because of the obvious fact that these guys have millions of followers. They've amassed all of these followers due to the fact that they're relatable, and a lot of people follow them and are interested in their opinions, their points of view, and the things that they do and say. But I think it runs deeper than that. I think for a very long time, the traditional boxing game has really cut itself off from mainstream sports, and it hasn't been very accessible for people. Boxing traditionally is on late night, or it's on pay-per-view channels, which you've either got to subscribe to, like historically you've got Sky Sports, BT Boxing, and that really closes off and pigeonholes the sport into almost a fringe sport. And I heard a fact that boxing is the second biggest sport in the UK after football, but in terms of its accessibility, it's one of the hardest sports to actually access and watch. And I think that has been one of the leading causes as to why the YouTube game has been able to come in so quickly and really take over. They've made it really easy for the younger fans to subscribe to their platforms and access the boxing. Misfits, DAZN Sports, DAZN Boxing has been able to capture a part of the market which the traditional boxing game never really wanted to target, which is the younger demographic of fans, from 15 up to about 20. Yes, boxers had big fan bases historically, but what you found is that it was generally the men at the pub drinking the beers with their pals wanting to watch the boxing. And what's happened now is, because of the big crossover from social media influencer into boxer, what you found is that these sports have come together. And yes, I'm calling the social media influencer scene a sport because it's competitive and people are working against each other to try and rank within the algorithm and rank up and boost their channel growth. So a level of competition comes into it, and the competitors are all working either with one another or working against one another for the same traffic. So the rise of Misfits has really happened over the last 2 years or so. And in that time, what we've found is that through the boxing scene, these YouTubers have been able to create a new avenue for them to generate income and generate revenue. And I'm interested to know what you think. Do YouTube boxers get paid too much for what they're doing? Or is their pay packet a direct relation to their commercial value in the YouTube space? Should they be paid more? Should they be paid less? But in my opinion, I really think YouTube is going to take over the boxing game for the long term. More and more influencers are looking to step over into the fight game, and that's because fighting sells. Before there were any other sports, there were probably two cavemen bashing the hell out of each other, and a crowd of people stood around watching, spectating, making a spectacle of it. So it's the true old school gladiator sport, and I think when two men step into the ring or two women step into the ring to lay hands on one another, it generates that interest. And because of the younger demographic who are following these YouTubers, they are caught up in that because they think that it's exciting to watch, it's interesting to watch, more so than watching two professional athletes who have been training their entire lives to compete getting in the ring and fighting. We already know they can fight. We already know what to expect. There's usually a favourite. There's usually an odds-on favourite. There's usually one of the fighters who is ranked levels above. And in most cases, fighters now get pitched with journeymen, and we already know the outcome of these fights before they ever step in the ring. But with YouTube boxing, with the crossover from the influencer scene, it's got a lot more interesting because you don't know if these guys can fight or not. You're not entirely sure about the outcome, and betting odds can most likely be wrong in some cases because we just don't know who's going to show up to fight and who's going to show up to dance and not compete at all. And for that reason, I think that there's a lot more interest around the YouTube boxing game. You've got fighters like KSI now stepping in the ring with Joe Fournier, 9-0 professional boxer. And that's because they gain the interest from the offset and then they translate that into the professional ranks because that's where they know they're going to get the credibility from the rest of the sport and the die-hard boxing fans. But realistically, they don't need to do the crossover game into the professional ranks. They could continue fighting YouTubers and build their own rankings and build their own scene of fighters and influencers who are known for what they have done historically but are now known for fighting. So it's a very interesting time in the boxing world, and I really think that if the boxing promoters and the broadcasters don't get on board with YouTube boxing and start accepting it for what it is, they're going to be left in the background, in the dust. Yes, it is damaging to some professional boxers, grassroots boxers rather, who are coming up the ranks organically. But what it's shown us and everybody else within the general public and the boxing public is that boxers now need to understand how to use social media to gain traction and a following way before they step into the professional ranks, because that following, that organic following, is their commercial value. And once they step into the professional ranks, they then have more negotiation power or negotiating power when they sit on the table with the promoter and the broadcaster to say, no, I want a bigger piece of the pie because this is what I'm bringing to the table. All of these eyes are on this sport and are on me because of the hard work that I've done. So using things like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube is very important. And a lot of these fighters, because boxers aren't historically the sharpest between the ears, all they know how to do is really get in the gym, work hard, train and box. What they don't know how to do is market themselves, promote themselves, create a fanfare and a following, create a buzz around them. And what they need to now do is start creating that hype so that when they do step into the professional ranks, they have more negotiating power to barter and get larger purses and earn more money. So overall, in my opinion, I think that the YouTube boxing game has got a lot to offer the boxing space, and a lot of traditional boxers can learn a lot from these influencer boxers about how they can market themselves, because I guarantee you KSI, Jake Paul, Salt Pappy, Slim Faze, Astrid Wet and so on are earning a lot more money than a lot of professional boxers, and they are influencers who have stepped over into the fight game. So I'm interested to know what you think in regards to whether or not YouTube boxing is good for the sport or bad for the sport. Do you think that pay-per-view buys directly correlate to the amount of subscribers people have got, or is it the fact that they're marketing themselves properly, they're creating the hype and the fanfare, and that is translating into them being able to sell more pay-per-views because the general audience and the boxing public, or the general boxing public, are not diehard fans, couch fans, think it's more interesting. One thing I will say is, having watched the last few Misfits cards on DAZN, I think that the way the broadcasters put them shows together is a lot more interesting. There's no big big gaps between the fights. And one thing that you find is that, and I heard this from watching IFL TV, is that the fans are there from the start of the show to the end of the show. And historically, what you find with boxing events, traditional boxing events, is that fans will only really show up for the last few fights on the card. So for the majority of the night, the arena or the stadium is empty. And that's why it's hard for these grassroots or boxers who are fighting on the undercards without a big name currently to build up their fanfare, because fans don't really give a shit. All they care about is the most famous, the most popular fighters in the boxing game. And that usually translates to who's an Olympian. If you've been to the Olympics, then woo, you're going to get the fanfare. If you haven't, then sorry, you're going to have to start from the ground up. So these are the things that need to change, and the professional boxing game needs to look at YouTube boxing and think about how can we learn from them. What can we do to introduce new concepts into our sport? We already understand how backwards boxing can be when it comes to the judges and the scorecards and the officials, and drug testing. All this rigmarole with Conor Benn recently. Boxing is an old school sport that needs to get into the 21st century. You've got knockdowns being, you've got fighters who are being classed as knockdowns when they're not knockdowns. You're having fighters getting stopped by the referee prematurely. You're having cards swing the complete other way when you look at the scorecards and the wrong person has won. And this is turning fans off traditional boxing, and they're more interested in Misfits or YouTube boxing because it's fun, it's light-hearted. And that's where I think the sport, currently traditional boxing, is dropping the ball. So guys, I don't want this video to go on for too long. It's Harry from Inside Boxing Brain. Thank you again to every single person who has subscribed to my channel, who leaves me comments in the comment section, and who shares these videos and likes them. It means a lot to me. Click the affiliate link in the description below, and I'll be back for another video very soon, guys. Peace.